And welcome to everybody. I'm really excited that you were able to join us today, and we're really excited to have three of our current graduate students who are serving as our expert panelists today to be able to answer some of your questions and talk a little bit about that graduate student experience. I am Dr. Janet Beagle. I'm the Senior Director of Graduate Programs here in the College of Engineering at Purdue University. And I'll let each of the panelists introduce themselves in a moment here. But again, for those of you that have just joined us, there is a Q&A feature as well as a chat feature in the WebEx platform. If you have questions that come up that you want to ask the panelists, go ahead and put them into the Q&A feature. We will get to as many of them as we can. But we are going to start with some of the questions that were submitted during the registration process. And there were quite a few there. There were a lot of kind of repeat questions, and we know that those are ones that are of particular interest to all of you. So we're going to start with those and then kind of work our way through the list. A couple of really quick items that I want to mention right at the outset here. A couple of the questions that came in during the registration process were focused more on either very specific situations or questions more on kind of process and procedure at Purdue. So I want to hit a couple of those because then our panel today is really going to focus a lot more on the graduate student experience and what it's like being a graduate student. So first off, if you do have any questions related to your visa, I encourage you to reach out to our international scholars group here at Purdue. And so that's the ISS. So I'm sure you're already familiar with them. But iss@purdue.edu is their email address, or if you Google Purdue ISS, their website will come up and get some information from there. And they'll be able to walk you through any questions you have related to your visa. I know there's a lot of changing procedures and policies out there. They'll be able to help you with your specific situation. So that's your best contact for that. And then there were a lot of questions related to deferrals. So just a couple of quick points there. If you have specific questions about anything related to the academics in your program or the deferral process for your program, your first point of contact is going to be your graduate administrator or your graduate contact. If you're not sure who that person is, if you go to your program's website, they will have their information listed there. If you are planning on deferring to a future semester, then you don't need to register for the fall. And there were questions about kind of the timing of those deferrals. You can put your request in to defer at any time. Those are processed on a rolling basis, but all of them are not completed until after the fall semester starts. So if you have requested a deferral and have not received an official notice yet that has been processed, don't panic. Those are processed over the coming weeks, and they usually aren't completed until after the start of the fall semester to get you ready to be able to register for a future semester. So again, any specific questions like that you have, reach out to your specific School of Engineering, your graduate administrator, your graduate contact. If you do have a faculty advisor, that's an individual that can help you as well. But really that graduate administrator or graduate contact in your program is going to be a great resource for you. All right. With that, we are going to get started with our actual panel. I'm going to have each of our panelists introduce yourselves if you want to just briefly your name, where you are in your program, what you're studying, and maybe a little bit about kind of your background, where you did any of your previous degrees, where you're from, that type of information to kick us off, and then we will get started. Agudemo, if you want to start us off, I have you first in my window here. So.
Yeah, sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Agudemo Bartigan. I am a fourth-year PhD student in Biomedical Engineering department. So before joining Purdue, I did my bachelor's degree in electrical engineering back in China, and I came to US in 2014 for my master's degree in the same degree, electrical engineering. And after 2 years of master's study, I decided to pursue my PhD study. So that's why I came to Purdue. So right now, my research is focused on how our brain helps us hear in noisy environment. So basically, I do a bunch of non-invasive measurements like EEG on humans, and also play sound stimulus to see how their brain is responding to my sound stimulus. That's pretty much what I'm doing right now. And so I was hoping to graduate next semester. You know, it's going to be like 4 year, like PhD of 4 years. But due to current pandemic, I'm not so sure anymore. So yeah, still trying to figure out, still trying to adapt to this new situations. Yeah, I'm happy to talk about my past PhD experience. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Okay, great. All right, Morgan.
Hi, everyone. My name is Morgan Broberg. I am originally from Western New York. I did my bachelor's down in Texas, and I entered a direct to PhD program here at Purdue. So what that means is I was really confident I wanted to get a PhD. So I applied and was accepted directly to get a PhD in civil engineering. I am in the structural engineering program, and I am entering my 4th year this year. I probably have about 2 years yet left. There's a little bit of a COVID buffer added in there. And I do research on tall buildings and how they respond to earthquakes. So yeah, I'm excited to be here. I hope that's a little bit about me, and looking forward to talking more about your questions.
Great, thanks so much. All right, and Manuel.
Hi, everyone. My name is John Cabrera. I did my undergrad in Syracuse University. I did my bachelor's in aerospace engineering. And then I came to Purdue in 2016 to pursue my master's in aeronautics and astronautics. The PhD bug bit me, and so I stayed for my PhD. And then now in my 2nd year of my PhD, my research is on entry systems, like hypersonic entry systems. And when I'm not hunched over my computer, I like to go for runs or play Frisbee. So like my colleagues, Agudemu and Morgan, I'm more than happy to answer any of your questions. So happy to be here.
Very good. All right, thank you. All right, so we're going to jump right in. The first question that came up a lot, I've gotten a couple different versions here, is what is one thing you wish you knew about grad school before you started? And kind of related to that, if you could go back and do something differently, what would you do? Go ahead.
I think that's a great question. The first thing that came to mind was sources of funding. If I could go back in time, I would have applied to kind of more programs that would have helped me fund my 1st year of master's at the very least. So it would have been nice to come in with some funding. So that would be like one thing that I wish I knew before coming to grad school. It has gotten better since. I've been able to find other sources of funding. But yeah, if there was one thing I could do, it would be apply for those funding programs. So yeah.
I think if there was one thing that I know now that I wish I would have known then is just how many like resources there is. So whether you're talking about looking about for funding, or you're talking about wanting to understand, like there's resources for if you don't get along with your advisor. There's resources for if you want to go learn how to cook better. There's resources for everything and anything that you are looking for. And now as a senior PhD student, I have an idea of all these resources, many of which I might not have questions anymore that they could really help me with, but especially initially, I wish I had taken better advantage or known that there's all these resources, especially your grad ed coordinator, first person to start with any question, all these resources to really help you get started and get going.
Just as Daniel and Morgan mentioned, so I wished I knew more about more resources when I got started. So more specifically, I wish I knew how to use citation management tool. So in the first semester, I didn't know what that is, and I was working on article, a document which is part of the requirements of my qualification examination. So as I was working through that document, I needed to cite a lot of papers. So what I was doing was really stupid, really inserting that tiny little number within my text and then go back to the end of my document and then type that same number again and copy paste the title of the article that I was citing. So I ended up citing more than 100 articles, and then that was really tedious. That was a huge amount of time. And after I finished doing all of that, I found that everybody was using citation management too. I was just so mad because, I wasted so much time, by manually doing all of that, while citation management tool can do that automatically for you. So yeah, so after today's meeting, I would strongly recommend you to download that immediately. That will save you tons of times. And so yeah, as Morgan and Daniel mentioned that, I wish I knew more about these resources. Actually, I learned about the citation management tool from a workshop that was arranged by my department. So you can also learn how to use citation management tool from a librarian, and there are really a lot of workshops. Actually, Joanne is sitting right among us today, and she sends emails very often, and she teaches us literally about everything about how to make slides, how to present them, how to write a paper, publish them, including citation management too. So I also recommend you to keep an eye on the emails from Joanne, and if that information is of interest to you, just be more active in participating in those workshops. That would be really helpful.
Great. And so you all hit on one of the other big questions that came up, and that is, what are some of the resources that are available to students that they might not be aware of? So the citation management tools, certainly a big one. What are some of the other resources that you've learned about over the course of your graduate career that you wish you had learned about sooner? And while you mentioned funding, we can roll that one in here as well. We'll talk a little bit more about funding. I've got another question, but if there are funding resources as well as some of these other just general resources, what are some of those?
I think that the first resource that I wish I had used better is, I wish initially I felt more comfortable asking colleagues and other graduate students, because I can't sit here and tell you a resource that is the end all be all for any question. I can tell you the first person that I talk to when I have any question. Her name is Molly, and she is the administrative assistant for my department. So great resource. The first person when I don't know who to talk to, the first person I go and talk to. And then that's followed by like my grad ed coordinator. But there's also like a lot of resources out there that it really depends what problem you're having. So now when I have a problem that I don't know who to talk to, well, I have a lot of experience at Purdue. So I have some ideas of who to talk to. So if I haven't figured that out yet, then I know the couple people to go talk to. But initially, I wouldn't have known a lot of who to necessarily reach out to. So reaching out to colleagues, reaching out to other graduate students and saying, hey, I have this question about registration. Do I talk to my advisor? Do I talk to my program coordinator? It doesn't matter. You could talk to either of them. But figuring out who are some of those people. Oh, there's actually people around you. If you have an advisor and are doing research, the rest of your research group is a great tool. Or if you're looking at just a master's option or something, or you're just taking classes, other students are a great first place to start with if you take that advantage. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely recommend you to be more active in asking, asking for help. So initially, I was really shy, not being able to, ask questions, even though I was struggling. So if you ask, one person, that information from that person would lead to another, and then, it's like an accumulation process. So on top of my head, I think the best resource for me is the emails, from everywhere, pretty much. So the first thing I could think of is the email from Joanne about, different workshops. And the second one is the email from PGSG. So it really lists a lot of resources, including psychologists, counseling services, and co-rec, and also some online writing workshops. Yeah, so just keep an eye on those emails. Just don't move them to your trash immediately without seeing them. Yeah.
Yeah, what they said.
All right, very good. All right, so just kind of in general, what advice do you have for students who are just starting out in their grad program? And are there things that students could be doing now that's going to help set themselves up for success for this first semester?
I think being proactive and talking to faculty members and identifying, I'm speaking from my experience. I knew I wanted to do a thesis or wanted to, pursue a research project. I think being proactive and talking to different faculty members to identify like that one piece of research that you're really passionate and would truly feel yourself succeeding in, I think that is a crucial first step. I kind of twiddled my thumbs a little bit and just kind of went through the motions my first semester and just did classes and things like that. Um, so I would not recommend that. I would recommend being proactive to talking to different researchers. I mean, you're in academia, like they're everywhere. So I would identify a research project that you're passionate about first and foremost, if you know, find yourself in that research path.
I think especially since this year is a weird one with COVID, that something I would really encourage you to do is, I know that GSAs, Graduate Student Associations, so basically a student club in your department, are reaching out to students, and I would really encourage you to reach back, because normally I'd say, talk to all the people in class and find some friends or find some colleagues to do homework with and really try to get connected. I think it might be a little bit harder this year to make some of those initial connections. So I'd really encourage you, as people in your department are reaching out and saying, hey, we're having a virtual, yada, yada, yada. Click it, come to it, like you're here now. That's a good sign. But I'd really encourage you to initially get connected, because I think that really improves your experience. And like, you're a holistic person. You're not just this person who sits all day and does research alone, or sits all day and goes to classes alone. So developing those friendships and those, like, if nothing else, it is very helpful to have a study buddy in graduate school. So find yourself a study buddy early on.
So, so in the beginning, as a PhD or master's student, you might not have a clear idea about what you really want to do in terms of your project, but that doesn't mean that you can't start. So actually, if you go to your departmental website, you can find some example theses from previous PhD students, even from your lab, from your previous lab members. You can go through those PhD thesis or master's thesis, and then have a general idea about the amount of work that you need to put in your PhD or master's program. And once you have a general idea about what you need to work on, you would have like a vague structure, like a vague schedule for your entire PhD or master's program. And you can also download some thesis template from your department website, and you can try to lay out the chapters and try to just put some. It doesn't have to be very specific. Just try to throw in some ideas to brainstorm some ideas and put them in. And I would say that your PhD or master's program is going to be a journey of filling out those gaps eventually. After you finish filling out those gaps, you're done. It's time to graduate. So I think it's a very good idea to have that structure to guide you to achieve your academic goals. And certainly, you don't have to do that all by yourself. You can talk to your advisor. You can talk to your the lab members to work on that together. Yeah.
How do all of you balance competing demands? We know that we hear scary stories sometimes about graduate school, about how intense it can be. Whether you're doing a professional master's program or non-thesis master's where you're really focused on coursework at an accelerated rate, or whether you're juggling research and courses and everything that goes along with it, all of the professional development, internships, conferences, there's a lot of stuff out there. How do you guys balance all that?
I think it's sometimes okay to say no to things from time to time. You don't have to do everything. If you feel too overwhelmed, in terms of taking a certain, task, for example, attending a conference, I think it's a good idea. It's a good practice to, turn it down. And sometimes when people ask you for help, and I think it's a lot better to let them know that you can't do, you can't, finish them because of your busy schedule, then, then to agree to the task, and then not being able to keep the promise. That's one thing that you can do to sort of make don't not making your schedule too crazy.
Yeah, I think balancing competing demands, one, I'm not sure that there's a perfect balance, but I think it's really about like what I spend my time on. I want that to align with like my priorities, and also with like expectations of I am a paid employee of my advisor, so therefore like there are things for him that I need to do. So I think saying no is great advice. I think you need to, if you never say yes to anything, like let's say yes to something, but there's things on my schedule that don't move. They don't move if my professor decided a deadline moved and he's going to work all night. Well, like we have a pre-established that this thing doesn't move. So those are things, whether it's friends, family, faith, all those kind of things that are important to me. And since they're important, they have times on my calendar, and those are times that I'm not available and I do not do work. And it's something that I know my professor knows when he bumps up with things that I won't move, and that's okay. Because just like my advisor has a life, I have a life, and it's actually like really important that I have things that are not doing school. This is a marathon and not a sprint. So if I only do school things, I don't have friends, I don't hang out with people outside of it, I don't do fun things, that's really bad for my mental health in general. And like, let's live, let's have a good life, even in grad school.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Finding or striking that right balance between your life and your work schedule, and just keeping that structure in there through a calendar can really go a long way. At the beginning of every semester, I mean, you can always set up goals that you kind of want to achieve by the end of the semester, and then kind of tailor your schedule according to those goals and things like that. So yes, like my colleague said, balance and definitely have some structure.
What are some of the things that you guys do for fun or to take a break? What are some of the opportunities either around Purdue, around Indiana, or other things that you guys do?
There's a lot of running trails here. So if you, I would highly recommend kind of exercising, definitely. Exercise is a great way to de-stress, and it releases chemicals in your body that help, you think better later on anyway. So I think exercise is a great thing. There are always, I mean, pre-COVID, you could go to downtown and visit some cool places, eat at some places, drink at bars and things like that. Not sure if that's really possible nowadays. Yeah, so I think those are a good start, I think.
I like exercising as well, especially running outdoors. So right now it's really pleasant to run outdoors. Probably not winter in West Lafayette. But yeah, when the weather is nice, I would definitely enjoy a nice long run outside. And I also like working out in the gym. But currently I don't feel, comfortable enough to going back into the gym. So I've been purchasing some personal like home, training equipments, and try to make up And recently, I've been doing some photo shooting moon, for example, just to, develop a new hobby. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a variety of different things that I spend time on. It's really important to me to spend time with other important people. So I, pre-COVID, was in a bowling league, not because I particularly love bowling, but I have a friend who loves bowling. So I'm one of the people on his bowling team. I had no idea I was going to do that in grad school. So I bowl once a week. I'm really involved at church. So I have something once a week there. Like the guy said, I think exercising is really important. So I used to be going to workout classes a lot. Now I just go and run every other day or so. I ran this morning. It was lovely here. Taking time to do that. I also, I have friends over for dinner. We play games. My personal, individual hobby is I like to do puzzles. So I like to do puzzles because you get done and look, I've accomplished something. And I have to admit, all my research work, there's just some days that you work and you're like, I feel like I'm at the same place I was this morning. So I like puzzles because they're fun and you can see progress. So those are some of my hobbies and things I really enjoy.
So a question just came in for somebody that hasn't been to campus. What is the co-rec like on campus? If you guys can talk about that. Is that a good place to work out typically?
I think the co-rec is already open. So I think they moved, equipments further apart from each other, to keep social distancing. And then you have to make a schedule before, actually going in there. So I think, a lot of new protocols have been established to keep social distancing.
To add on to what Agudemu said, yes, you have to book an appointment now. And if you fail to show up for your appointment, you actually cannot make any more appointments, I think, for the rest of the semester. So they're really strict about that. You also have to wear a face mask even when exercising, with the exception of being in the pool. So just as a heads up there, they published all of these new guidelines on the COREC website. So if you're curious, you can totally check that out for more information. But pre-COVID, I mean, the COREC is a fantastic place. There's just so many things to do. There are so many types of courts: basketball courts, racquetball courts, volleyball courts. It's huge. There are 4 levels to this thing. Yeah, you can get a decent workout in there day in and day out. That's obviously going to change, or has changed already, but if you're curious, I would recommend checking it out still.
And I do know that they've been, at least over the summer, and I imagine they'll do some through the fall as well, been doing some virtual exercise classes and things like that as well, that you can log in and be part of a class virtually from wherever you are. So whether it's a group X or a yoga class or things like that as well. So that's another way to potentially meet some people, but at least be in a virtual environment with other people, even though you might be at home and away from folks. Right. So kind of speaking of COVID, that's another big topic that I did want to touch on. What tips do you guys have? I'll answer or ask 2 questions here. What tips do you guys have for staying connected with your faculty advisors, with classmates, with other individuals during COVID? And then also, how have you seen the COVID experience change your graduate school experience? And are you still able, for those on the call that are doing research, are you still able to do research at this point? And what's that experience like? So kind of 2 pieces to that, things related to COVID.
Yeah, I think COVID has definitely changed my relationship with my lab mates, advisor, or those kind of things some. I used to just, he has an open door policy, so I would just walk into his office whenever I had a question. Now, he and I, we start every Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning together. So we meet 3 times a week, which is a lot. but it's sometimes we skip them, but it's so much more important that we have something on the calendar. We have our WebEx meeting. The same thing applies to my Labmates. It's just, it's a testament to being much more intentional. So I am intentional. My lab meeting with my advisor is on the calendar, and it's something we do unless we text and decide we're not going to do, rather than something we text about maybe doing. In the same way, keeping connected with Labmates, with other colleagues from work, classmates, that's something to be intentional about. So instead of it just happening because we sit 2 desks from each other, I guess this is another hobby, over the course of COVID, I've never seen The Office, and one of my colleagues loved The Office. So she and I Netflix partied the entire Office, which is a lot, over the last 4 or 5 months or so. Thank you. So I now can get all the Office references and memes. But like these people around us, they have these important things, and you have things that you're passionate about. So finding and planning actual time with others instead of just waiting for it to happen. As far as has it impacted my graduate career, yes, I'm expecting probably it will take about 6 months longer to wrap up. But that being said, this is the most productive from a writing standpoint I have ever been. So writing a lot of papers, which for those in academia, it's really important that you actually spend time and write papers to get to disseminate your research. So to get out there what you're doing. So yeah, I've written a lot of getting a lot of writing done, and definitely still making progress. It just looks a little different.
I agree about Morgan's comment about being intentional. Also, with regards to my research, I'm more on the computational side, so I am very fortunate that I could just stay hunched over my computer and keep working on my research that way. Akujemu, you said you take measurements, right? So
Yeah.
it's probably better if you talk about how the experimentalists are affected by this.
Yeah, so I do research on humans. So yeah, so this pandemic situation is really disruptive. So in the beginning of this pandemic, the onset, my research has been halted completely. So I couldn't do any research. I couldn't do any measurements on humans. But there's always a way around it. During the past few months, our lab has been trying to move some of our experiments online, where you don't actually need to, have close contact to humans. And right now, we've been getting some good results. The results from online measurements are relatively comparable to in-lab measurements, so we're quite optimistic about it. So hopefully, we could get a lot more data. So online measurement is not necessarily a bad thing, though, because one advantage of online measurement is that you have wide access to a much wider population. So right now, we can post our experiment online, and then within about 1 hour we could get data from 30 subjects almost at the same time, which is really not possible if you do it in person. So I'm not really sad about this current situation. I'm just trying to look at the bright side. Online measurement obviously has its own advantage. So as Morgan said, I've been doing a lot of writing as well. It's a good time to write, obviously. And last semester I was working. I don't want to say that this pandemic just happened at the right time, but it happened at the time when I was doing my prelim examination, when I had to do a lot of writing and preparation. So it really didn't affect me that much in person. And then now our online measurement is almost ready to go. So the point I want to make is that there's always a way around it if you think harder, right? And in terms of staying connected to your advisor and to your lab members, I think, yeah, I totally agree with both of you that, you want to be, proactive. And so, for example, I have a meeting with my advisor once a week at least, and he has a lot of students, and the schedule is really crazy. Our lab schedule is very full. Sometimes he couldn't make it. So I just try to make, I don't want to like wait, not meeting him because of that. I would, sort of like demand a meeting at another time to make up for that. So try to keep the meeting like on a regular basis, keep it going. That's really important because mentorship is an extremely important part of your PhD program. And for connecting with lab mates, I don't think I'm doing a good job in connecting with my lab mates, honestly, because we're sort of working on like a separate project, so there's no much of an intersection. I think a good way to connect to your lab mates might be to organize like a journal club. You set up a meeting to discuss a paper of common interest, and that would be a good way to do it.
All right, kind of related to that, and I know some of you are further along in your PhD program, but are any of you taking online classes at this point, or do you have any tips, either from your own personal experience or from your fellow students that you've interacted with on how have the online classes been? How do you get the most out of an online class? And any just tips and advice for taking online classes this next semester?
I'll start off by admitting that I have not taken an online class at Purdue. That being said, my professor and I actually teach online classes. So we've put together, we teach them in modules, so they're 1 credit instead of 3 credit things. But we put together classes on online that are then offered online. And I would say, so as on the other side, as an instructor, or what am I hoping, or what do I think you need to do to be successful, is you need to engage with content in a timely manner. So that means all those like Brightspace notifications, you need to go in and change your notifications so that you get an, or if you're like me, I'm not good at checking Brightspace, so I just change it so I get an email every time there's something new. So doing something so you get notifications when things are new, keeping on top of work, and then reaching out as soon as you have questions. So I think it's really common, or in the classroom sometimes, you can sit and wait of like, maybe he's gonna, talk about this, or she's gonna talk about this next time. But since like a lot of this is pre-recorded, or a lot of the material is already put together, reaching out when you have that question as soon as possible. And like that requires you saying like, my question is important. I don't understand this, and that's important. It totally is important that you don't understand it. So reach out to whatever contact information is provided with little questions, big questions, and just reach out quickly.
I will also admit that I've never taken one, but I will take an online class for the first time this fall. So one of the things I'm thinking of doing is maintaining a consistent schedule, just as if I were actually going to a class, right? So if it was originally published that it was going to be taught in person from like 9 a.m. to 10:45 a.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'd probably block off that time in my calendar to watch the lecture videos then and there, just to kind of emulate the classroom experience. And one of the things I was planning to do is do it not from my room, because that's not going to be conducive to me learning, really. It's, my bed is right there. I'd probably be tempted to nap before I watch a lecture video. So keep a schedule and then go to a conducive environment for learning.
I've taken 2 online classes already. I've met all of my course requirements. I'm just taking them. I was just taking them out of curiosity and personal interest. So personally, I really don't like online classes. It's like, there's always something missing. The interaction, in-person interaction. what I would suggest to make the best out of online classes is, as you two just said, be more proactive about reaching out. And if you really want to talk about if the question that you have couldn't be answered online through emails or through whatever the online platform, you can always reach out to your instructor to set up like in-person virtual appointment. That could be helpful. Yeah.
All right, very good. And I will just kind of take a couple of the points that you guys made and just reiterate that this is another way to start building your network as well. So when you are in these online classes, every class is structured a little bit different, but if there are chat boards and different ways that you're interacting with your colleagues in your classes, that's another way to reach out. And you can start online study groups. You can start, chatting with your colleagues as well and try to establish some connections that way. So take advantage of those opportunities. Sometimes if you don't understand something, that's actually a really good opportunity to reach out and connect with somebody. And you may be able to start a relationship that way. So that's actually, questions are never a bad thing. Just make sure that you are, seeking out the answers to those questions as they come up. And so a little bit related to on the academic side, and then I'm going to switch over and ask you guys some funding questions. But on the academic side, I'll kind of ask two things here that are somewhat related. One, I'm thinking about imposter syndrome, right? I mean, coming into grad school can be a really intimidating experience. What advice do you have for that? Is this something that you personally experienced, or how do you manage those doubts? I think that doubt is something, even if you don't necessarily label it imposter syndrome, right? That doubt is something that every graduate student experiences. How do you kind of cope with that? And then also, if you do have any specific tips on how to manage the academic rigor coming into graduate school to keep up your GPA, any tips that you have related to that? So imposter syndrome and just general academic tips.
I guess the greatest tip I found useful is to, just fake it till make it, right? Try to do more like presentation, for example. If you are invited to do a workshop, a seminar, just take those advantages. Make sure that take those opportunities as like a practice. And another thing I would recommend you to do is to open a Twitter account. So I'm not talking about a Twitter account that you used to follow the celebrities or news, whatever. I'm talking about academic Twitter account. So basically, you open up a brand new Twitter account, and then you follow only the academics. So I'm talking about following the professors and your colleagues, the peer PhD students, postdocs, and because it's a really very like useful, beneficial platform. People talk about imposter syndromes a lot, and if you are on that platform, if you see people talking about it, you might find that you're not alone, and that you would have some emotional support from there. And it's not sometimes, and even it's not only about emotional support. Sometimes people post interesting things like job advertisement. Some professors would actually post advertisements for postdocs, internship, etc. And there are also some like Twitter accounts for conferences and agencies. So I think hearing what those great people have to say on there would sort of, I would say, I wouldn't say it would like build up your confidence, but just to be more informative about all those issues that PhD students or master students could encounter.
Yeah.
I think that go for it. You can start.
No, it's okay. You can go.
Okay. I think that imposter syndrome is real. I think that I am about 10% of my specific program, structural engineering, is women. So it's something that I actually encounter a lot with especially women colleagues of mine. I think the first thing to do is acknowledge it, is acknowledge that I don't feel qualified to be here, that I don't feel like I'm having these feelings and they make me feel like I don't belong here. That's not true. So, like, you're here, your credentials got you here, and your credentials and all the knowledge and skills that you're building are why you're still here. So I think that building a support network of, like, there's women or there's guys in my life that I feel comfortable talking about when I just did something and I feel like, what did I do? How am I here? So I think like, for the fake it till you make it strategy is actually, I think it's something that got me through undergrad. And now I can sit here confident enough to say that, oh, like, there are times that I don't feel qualified, but that's a feeling, that's not a reality. There are times that I have questions of, oh, like, everyone else seems to be doing these great things, and I work today and I feel like I'm the same place I was this morning. Well, that's actually like the graduate school experience. That's the graduate student experience. And I think the closer you get to others around you, the more you realize that, like, your feelings of incompetence, oh, everyone's feeling them. Everyone's feeling like, I didn't get this right, this didn't go right. And so really, it's in as loving a way as possible. Those feelings aren't that special, so to speak. Everyone has those doubts. And just developing a system around you that says, oh, you're crazy. Like, stop with this, like, poor self-talk. Acknowledge it and move on, because you're here and you're meant to be here.
I have nothing else to add regarding imposter syndrome because I agree 110% with both Morgan and Agudemu. I will try to talk about the other question, though, about, like, just general academic tips. Please go to office hours. It may sound silly, but just, who else would know better the material than the professor who's actually teaching it, right? Like, I was too prideful as an incoming master's student and never sought out help in office hours until it was too late. So if I could offer a piece of advice from my past mistakes, it would be to go to office hours.
I would second that. I wouldn't say that. I'd say the reason I didn't go to office hours at first was because I felt nervous or scared, or like they actually have time for this. Like, they have so many better things to do with their time. They're not doing anything else for that hour that they've completely set aside to talk to you for. And they're in this business because they love talking to students and because they love educating people. We can argue over, how effective everything is or whatever, but they've set apart this time and it's totally for you. So show up, ask questions. That's what it's there for. Go with friends if that makes you feel more comfortable.
All right, very good advice. Thank you, guys. I love it. All right, I want to switch gears just a little bit and talk a little bit about funding. So we know that some incoming graduate students, are given a funding offer on their way in. Some have not been given a funding offer yet, and they're trying to find either a major advisor or funding opportunities. What advice do you have for finding an advisor, finding research funding? What other types of funding are there, and how do you find those other types of funding as well?
So I don't have a research assistantship or a teaching assistantship, actually. My funding comes through a different department that is totally outside of my engineering major. I am a grad assistant at the Academic Success Center, which is in the student success programs. And what I do is talk to undergrads and help them develop good academic success skills. My advice to seeking funding is to be open, especially when you're just trying to get your feet wet. Maybe you're not sure what your specific research topic is yet. That's not really going to help you find the right professor and the right research funding, right? But if you have some experience in student success or things like that, and maybe for your first year here you just want some sort of funding, try to be open to those things, because that's what I ended up doing I was open to those opportunities, and I've had this assistantship since like 2017, and I haven't looked back. It's still paying for my tuition and things like that. So any funding is good funding, I would say, and just be open to it.
So I have been on research assistantship from my advisor's funding from the beginning of my PhD. And this semester, I'm transitioning to teaching assistantship because I want to stay in academia after graduation. So I want to have a little bit of a teaching experience. So these are two typical fundings that you could have. One is from your advisors, research funding as a a research assistantship, and the other one is from and also like teaching assistantship, which is usually provided by your department. And there are certainly some external fundings as well, just as Daniel mentioned, and some national fundings, for example, from National Institute of Health, if you are doing health-related research, and also national science foundations. But unfortunately, I couldn't apply for those fundings because I'm international student. I'm not. So usually those national fundings, they have limitations regarding if you are permanent resident or Americans, you know. So for those international students, if you are looking for fundings, I would suggest you to seek from look for some internal fundings. Because those fundings from within Purdue, for example, usually don't have limitations regarding residency. And there are certainly other, organizations from personal fundings that would also that also don't have any restrictions on residency.
So I started with funding. I came in with funding through some grad school fellowships. I have worked with my professor the entire time that I've been here. I knew I'd work with him before starting. I've worked this summer before I started classes. Not a great plan this summer. But so I've been funded the whole time, always funded through him. Sometimes I'm on TA money, sometimes I'm on RA money. Honestly, it doesn't matter which one I'm on. I'm on them because I work for him and work with him and we're doing research-related things. And sometimes I also help in a couple of classes that he's teaching because I similarly want to end up in academia. So I think there's other funding resources. I think if you connect with an advisor, if you have research interests that align, and if they have some funding, that's awesome. If you don't find that, that's okay too. I think it just means that you need to try. You need to keep looking at, there's offices across the college, across the university that have graduate TA opportunities. I know chemistry, first-year engineering, physics. If you speak another language, those are all things that I know people who have funding through those programs, but it just took a little bit more effort. Or you had to seek out those opportunities as opposed to them just ending up on your doorstep. So if you're looking for funding and haven't yet found it through an advisor, through research in your department, I would recommend getting creative and looking across or outside the college for other areas of funding.
Very good. A couple other kind of general points that I'll just make. The funding typically for graduate students, the most common type of funding is through an assistantship. And typically funding will go to PhD students first and then to master's students after that. Professional master's programs typically do not have funding. So if you're in a professional master's program, typically you will fund that program yourself or find some kind of external support, whether that's through a company that's funding you or through some kind of external fellowship. What I would encourage everybody to do is be familiar also with your specific engineering program and the process within that school, because it is a little bit different. Some schools, it's very common to bring students in without funding, and they actually have a structure in place so that over the course of that first semester, you meet with a variety of different faculty members and you identify a research group that you'll work with. Others, it's much more on you as the student to seek out those opportunities. So it's important that you do understand the structure in your own department as well. Some of them really encourage you to email faculty and to engage with them. Others put a structure in place for you to kind of meet individuals and go through that process as well. The last resource that I'll mention, we do have a list of external fellowships up on the College of Engineering website. So up on there, it's engr.purdue.edu/grad, and I'll put it in the chat here for everybody. But if you go out there to our current student page, you'll see links out to funding and fellowships. And there is a list of more than 100 fellowships out there, a variety of different types of backgrounds and experiences. Some are for international students, some are for US citizens. You just have to identify those that might be a fit for you. So look for those opportunities as well. All right, the last topic that I wanted to get to with you guys is related to kind of career and internships and things like that. If you can comment on the career fairs that Purdue does, any experiences, if you yourselves have attended some of these or any of your colleagues, internship opportunities, job prospects, what's that kind of look like at Purdue and what opportunities are there to get involved in?
I personally have, despite my long tenure at Purdue, have not been to one of Purdue's job fairs, primarily because I'm not looking for employment like what they would offer in the industry. But I have had one of the joys and the sad parts of being a PhD student who's been here for a while. I've had a lot of friends who've gotten masters and left, and everyone gets a job. My last friend who graduated, she was offered every job that she interviewed for. I have another friend who was looking for a job in the middle of COVID, and he has a job now. So as far as are people able to get jobs, in my experience, like, yes, without an issue of like, I was really impressed when he found a position that he's excited about in the middle of COVID. And I know some of my other friends are working, 90% of hours or things like that too. Because that's what their companies have done to make ends meet during COVID. So yeah, I think there's lots of jobs out there. I've had people who are just getting masters and then work internships during the summer. Definitely have had those Labmates as well. So it seems to be working pretty well.
So I have a suggestion about internship. So if you want to do your internship during your PhD or your master's, whatever program you're taking, make sure that you discuss that opportunity with your advisor first. I think that's really important that you notify them, because if you are if you are dependent on their funding, for example, research funding, it's really not cool for you to take action, for example, application to applying to those jobs without notifying your advisor. It's just not a good way to approach it. So I would suggest you to talk everything with your advisor first. Yeah.
That's fair. And also, like, your advisor is an advocate for you. So if that's something that you want to do, they can talk about like when might be a good summer or semester to do that. It's not they're necessarily going to say, no, how dare you think about it, but they might also have some good suggestions of when to think about it and some timing thoughts.
In terms of like career fairs, there is the industrial roundtable every fall, and I think they also do one spring, but the bigger one is during the fall, where at the Purdue like engineering mall, or sorry, the I'm forgetting which part of the campus it is, but pre-COVID times, they would, have all of these companies set up there, and it's basically a huge career fair. I have a good feeling that everything's going to be moved like a virtual career fair this time around. But so, I mean, when it comes to finding those internship opportunities or those co-ops or those jobs, just again, be open and actually be proactive in seeking out those opportunities to learn more about those. Depending on your department, they would always email out announcements about companies coming to campus and actually doing like an open house. Well, not an open house, but like an informational session or just a talk about what their company is all about, and if they're looking for prospective interns and things like that. And always have your resume ready and attend those talks. I will agree also with Morgan and Agudemu about talking to your advisor about these things, because for all you know, they could have that opportunity just sitting in their on their table. Maybe they heard about it that day too. So you can always talk to your advisor about that and see what they can do and help advocate for you. Yeah, I think that's what I wanted to add.
All right, very good. So we are at the end of our hour, so we are going to have to wrap up with that. One quick add-on that I will make with the Industrial Roundtable and other career fairs and experiences that Purdue offers, a lot of those will be virtual this year. So that is something to watch for. So those of you that are planning on taking all of your courses online this fall, some of that might not have been open to you previously because we were physically on campus is now going to be open to you. So I think there are going to be a lot of neat opportunities. Kind of like I think Agudamo mentioned earlier, there's a lot of negatives that have come out of this pandemic, but there are also some opportunities and some things there that maybe we couldn't have experienced before, and we do have to kind of look for those positives in this as well. So thank you very much to our panelists. I think this was really good advice. Hopefully it was helpful to all of you who joined in. We will send out a link to this recording once we get that set up. And as we have additional either information sessions like this or other video content, watch your email. We will try to send stuff out from our office. And as some of the comments early on in this session were, keep an eye on your email because there are a lot of workshops, information, resources, opportunities that are going to come across your desk. And you don't want to miss them. So good luck to everybody starting the fall semester. And we hope that you tune in for a future session at some point. So thank you, everybody.